The front door clicked open with a soft, familiar snap, and Sarah stepped inside looking entirely too radiant for someone exhausted. Her cheeks were flushed with a vibrant, natural glow, and she hummed a cheerful melody while tossing her designer handbag aside. For 14 days, Daniel believed she was locked in grueling corporate strategy seminars 3 states away. Yet, watching her effortlessly slide off her trench coat, he felt no warmth. Instead, a cold, suffocating wave of instinctual dread washed over him, whispering that the woman standing there was a stranger basking in the afterglow of an entirely different escape. She turned around, caught him staring from the living room archway, and quickly softened her expression into a practiced, sympathetic mask. She glided across the hardwood floor, stepping in for a perfunctory embrace, but her body felt tense and guarded beneath it. As she pulled back, smoothing her blouse with trembling fingers, Daniel noticed the faint scent of men's cologne lingering beneath her perfume. It was a subtle, damning detail that confirmed every ugly suspicion he had fought to suppress. She offered a breathless excuse about needing a shower, turning away before he could look deeply into her eyes. Before she could take 2 steps toward the staircase, Daniel didn't raise his voice or let out the explosive fury clawing inside. With a voice as cold and flat as winter ice, he asked a single, calculated question that completely shattered her composure entirely. "Did he tell you everything?" Sarah froze mid-stride, her posture stiffening instantly as the color vanished entirely from her face, leaving her chalk white. The confident, smiling wife evaporated, replaced by a cornered animal caught in the crosshairs of absolute certainty. She slowly turned back around, her lips parting in a silent gasp as she choked. 30 seconds later, the carefully constructed facade of her secret double life completely collapsed into a pathetic, frantic mess of absolute panic. Without uttering a word of denial, she dropped her car keys with a loud clatter and lunged forward, grabbing frantically at his arms. Her fingernails dug desperately into his sleeves as hot tears spilled instantly down her pale cheeks. "Please," she choked out, her voice breaking into a ragged sob. "Please, Daniel, I'll explain everything, I swear to God. Just please, I'm begging you, do not call his wife." The truth was finally out in the open. The sheer speed of her utter panic laid bare the horrifying reality of what had transpired during those 14 silent days away. She wasn't worried about saving their marriage, she wasn't concerned about his feelings, and she certainly wasn't interested in redemption. Her immediate, terror-driven plea revealed that her greatest fear was the catastrophic fallout that would happen if Marcus's wife found out. Daniel stood completely motionless, looking down at the trembling woman who had shared his bed, feeling a profound, chilling detachment. The selfish betrayal and cowardly deceit were finally laid bare, exposed by a single, aimed question. Her desperate words spilled out in a chaotic, incoherent flood of half-truths and pathetic justifications as she realized denial was completely useless. She confessed that the conference had been a lie from the very first day, and they had spent 2 weeks holed up together. She babbled about how it was just a temporary escape, how it didn't mean anything, and how Marcus promised to leave eventually. Daniel didn't interrupt her. He let every agonizing detail hang in the air, watching the mask slip further with every syllable. It was a terrifying masterclass in absolute self-destruction and endless arrogance. A sharp, dark curiosity flickered in Daniel's mind as he listened to her unravel, wondering just how deep this rabbit hole went. He wanted to know every lie she had told her colleagues, every alibi she fabricated, and every luxury item she bought secretly. A heavy wave of insecurity threatened to pull him under, forcing him to wonder if he was ever truly enough for her. Had he been too boring, too predictable, or simply too trusting while she chased the thrill of someone else's dangerous attention? He quickly shoved that toxic thought aside, replacing it with pure anger. The silence that followed her frantic outburst was heavy, oppressive, and thick with the weight of a shattered life that could never heal. Sarah stared up at him with wide, bloodshot eyes, waiting for the explosion of rage that never came, which somehow terrified her. Daniel calmly reached into his pocket, pulled out his smartphone, and tapped the bright screen without breaking eye contact for a second. Her breath caught sharply in her throat again, her knees buckling slightly as she watched his thumb hover over the recent contacts list. She knew one call would detonate both their lives. A sudden surge of dark, undeniable power washed over Daniel, extinguishing the last lingering embers of grief and replacing them with strategy. He realized that holding the trigger was infinitely more satisfying than firing it immediately, letting the suffocating weight of anticipation crush her. He slowly lowered the phone back to his side, watching the utter confusion and lingering terror wrestle inside her broken, desperate expression. She had walked through that door expecting a routine homecoming, completely unprepared for the reality that the man she owned had outsmarted her. The entire game had shifted entirely, leaving her utterly helpless. "Get up," Daniel commanded softly, his voice devoid of any emotion, treating her with the detached indifference one might show a stranger. Sarah scrambled to her feet, her expensive heels clicking awkwardly against the hardwood floor as she tried to regain some shred of dignity. The past belief she held that Daniel was weak and malleable shattered entirely in the face of his chilling, absolute control over her. She realized with a sickening jolt that she didn't know the man standing in front of her anymore. He was a completely different entity. The shock of his coldness paralyzed her completely. "I'm going to pack a bag and leave for the weekend," Daniel stated, his eyes locked onto hers with piercing intensity. "You will not contact me, you will not follow me, and you will spend the next 48 hours thinking about your future." He turned his back on her, a deliberate show of disrespect that cut deeper than any screamed insult or physical blow ever could. Her insatiable greed for a perfect public marriage and a secret private affair had cost her the very foundation of her entire life. She was left standing alone, suffocating in pure silence. As he walked up the stairs, Daniel felt the heavy chains of insecurity and fear finally snapping, falling away into the shadows completely. He no longer cared why she did it or what Marcus offered her. He only cared about the freedom that lay ahead now. The betrayal hurt, but the clarity it brought was a razor-sharp gift that severed the dead weight he had carried for 7 years. He packed his clothes methodically, leaving behind the pictures, the memories, and the illusion of a happy home built on a foundation of lies. He was finally ready to start breathing again. He walked past her on his way out, ignoring her silent, pleading tears as he opened the front door and stepped outside. The cool night air hit his face, and for the first time in weeks, his chest didn't feel tight with unspoken, heavy anxiety. He got into his car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back at the house that was no longer a home. Sarah remained standing in the hallway, clutching her expensive handbag, surrounded by the ruins of her own making, waiting for the inevitable end. The consequences of her actions had finally arrived completely.